The Pentagon quietly updated its war casualty database, recording more than 140 additional wounded and restoring the 4 soldiers killed due to the Iranian strikes after they effectively disappeared from the website.
When I was at the Pentagon, and we did unfortunately lose service members, we were very clear about where they were killed in action and the reason.
The Trump administration is facing questions on multiple fronts, and according to CNN's latest discussion, the answers just aren't adding up. The panel debates allegations that the Pentagon quietly changed how casualties from the Iran war were classified, concerns that America's military stockpiles are being stretched thin, the administration's immigration crackdown, and whether Donald Trump is once again putting politics ahead of transparency. The conversation also dives into the renewed attacks on Dr. Anthony Fauci and whether Republicans are more interested in relitigating COVID than preparing for the next public health crisis. Now, if you're new here, I'm Bradley Hostin, and this is The Bradley Hostin Show. If you enjoy honest political commentary, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. As usual, let's watch the clip and then I'll give you guys my thoughts afterwards.
The Pentagon quietly updated its war casualty database, recording more than 140 additional wounded and restoring the 4 soldiers killed due to the Iranian strikes after they effectively disappeared from the website.
When I was at the Pentagon, and we did unfortunately lose service members, we were very clear about where they were killed in action and the reason. And this idea that you're going to recategorize their deaths so it fits your political narrative that this war did not take a toll on 18 lives and over 600 wounded is gross. And it is, I think, deeply offensive to the families. I mean, people that I've spoken to at the Pentagon, this is not something that they have ever seen ever happen, a recategorization of how you would determine someone killed in action. And so, for the families of these 4 men and women who were just lost, it's devastating because when we have, the conversation of why they were lost because of this war. They were lost because Iran launched Iranian drones and ballistic missiles at installations where our service members are. And that is the reason.
It's the whole gimmick of saying, oh, okay, we've reached the threshold at which we don't have to notify Congress. So let's just pretend like we're going to start a new conflict. That, I think, seems to insult the intelligence of the American people who know exactly what's going on.
We've seen the Pentagon multiple times actually go through and set up after we've gone through several different kinds of border conflicts, after certain kinds of observations and then strikes, retaliations, recategorize both casualties on the injury side and then those who have died. We've seen this before, again, all the way dating back to the Korean and the Vietnam Wars, in which we've seen the Department of Defense at the time.
I've never seen Department of Defense recategorize injuries or deaths from an operation. I've never seen that. And I was at the Pentagon.
They've done so multiple times. Indeed, in the Obama administration, they recategorized the Syrian strikes multiple times.
That strikes, like deaths from a strike versus an entire operation is very different. This was an operation. This is a war. How do you explain how these 4 people died?
I'd like you to go back to asking very clearly, why didn't you know, if you're Miss Pentagon, why didn't you know the history of actually recategorizing strikes?
But hold on, how did these 4 people die?
Again, they were struck by Iranian forces.
From the war?
From, yes, the retaliation from the Iranians.
Okay, so it's from the war. Great.
Yeah, I mean,
that seems simple enough.
I don't even know why you would argue otherwise. It's the same conflict. It is definitely the same conflict. And I don't know. I mean, they initially tried to say this was a software glitch, and then they created a whole different place to put these names. Why?
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, what matters is that President Trump has honored these families, and I'm not shocked to hear that there's issues with government websites. Whether or not it was a purposeful obfuscation, I think remains to be seen.
Well, but I think at this point we know that
they changed the classification.
What I would say that this is not. I mean, the names came down. They claimed it was an accident, that's some kind of glitch. But then they did not restore them to where they should be. They put them in a different place.
Right. So I'd like to see.
That's not a tech issue.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that restored. I think we need to have transparency around what's going on. I think one situation that, frankly, where we saw the government was certainly obfuscating, didn't have any transparency, was Anthony Fauci, who we're getting his diaries today, where he was purposely obfuscating about
Anthony Fauci.
That's actually something where we know he was purposely obfuscating.
We're sitting here talking about Americans who were killed in theater, okay, as a result of a war. We are not going to pivot to Anthony Fauci's diaries. That's a different conversation.
You're saying that this is a purposeful obfuscation. We don't know that it was a purposeful obfuscation.
That we learned this weekend,
it was.
Isaiah, the other thing we learned this weekend is that the president has been warned by his own Defense Department, by his own vice president, that we are running low on munitions stockpiles. I'm going to play, this is Mike Walls, the ambassador to the United Nations, who was asked about this. And just listen carefully to how he explains whether this is true or not.
Is America backing away from a larger military attack because its military stockpile has been depleted?
Well, look, we have to take a step back here in that a lot of stockpiles were depleted, not only from what we gave Ukraine over the last however many years, 4 or 5 years, and the administration inherited, the Secretary Hegseth inherited a depleted situation.
But you acknowledge
I want to be clear.
Do you acknowledge they're depleted at this moment?
I want to be crystal clear. The U.S. military, and I've verified this every which way, has everything that it needs to conduct this campaign as effectively as it needs to be.
A tough job he's got there, because he seems to want to blame the previous administration for depletions and then claim that there are none.
I mean, it's just the standard playbook for them. It's just Biden derangement syndrome. It's really all they have at this point, because ultimately we understand that what was given to Ukraine was primarily for ground warfare. When it comes to this situation, I mean, he just said a couple weeks ago that the military had everything they needed to continue and to carry out these strikes. That's what he said. So it's amazing how when this comes down to where we are today, they change their tune. It's not really shocking because this is what they do.
So you can't have it both ways. Are we depleted or aren't we depleted? I want your opinion on that.
The point is
no,
that
answer the question. Answer it. Do you think we're depleted or not?
A couple weeks ago that we had everything we needed to carry out these strikes.
Can you answer the question?
So did he lie? Did he lie?
I'm asking you the question.
Did he lie?
What do you think?
It matters. I don't believe that the United States.
The reporting is that the president was warned by the Defense Department and by his own vice president that if they continued with a larger war campaign, which he has the option to do, that would dangerously deplete our munitions. So, and I've seen, actually, rather than a lot of people saying this is not true, I've seen a lot of conservatives saying, who leaked this? Which seems to imply that they believe it is true.
I do not believe that the United States is in a position right now where we're not able to continue interceptions. There's two kinds of core munitions. But if we're going to look at this right here, when you're looking interception or positive action.
That's just the way you're characterizing it is not entirely accurate. I think there has been, I think the United States military, to your point, will do everything necessary to conduct an operation. But what you are not including here is that they will pull stocks from other combatant commands because our stockpiles are so depleted.
Why are our stockpiles depleted to this level? Do you think
our stockpiles are depleted
operation
to this level?
Like this
you think
was
this
enough
is
to
small?
Deplete you think this is enough to deplete the entire U.S. stockpile?
No. You just said interceptors. How long do those take to make?
That's an excellent question.
How long do those
take to make?
They take 2 years.
Yes, they do.
And do you know how many we've gone through in this war?
By all means. Do you have that
No,
data
go ahead.
point?
You tell me.
I'm asking you to give me the
every
data
answer.
point.
What we have done is we have depleted very, very expensive munitions to shoot down very inexpensive drones, like $30,000 to $40,000 drones.
And to Walt's point, why did we not have a larger supply of interceptor missiles? If this isn't enough to take on Iran, then what about Russia or China?
We're not giving the type of interceptor missiles that we use on the battlefield to Ukraine.
So you're saying,
those are different.
I mean, it sounds
so
like
then,
at this
do we
point,
have a ready stockpile to take on a larger
It sounds
group?
like at this point, Tony, you're acknowledging that there is a depletion happening.
I'm saying that either so. If there's a conditional.
Today, the Trump administration reintroduced a new rule to accelerate deportations with the goal of reducing what it's calling a backlog in the asylum system.
But that's all we've heard repeatedly throughout this administration is we are going to target the worst of the worst. The Democrats want to keep dangerous criminals in this country. But that all proves what we've all been saying. That's not true. They just want to make these target numbers that they've come up with. And if you think about this, about what they're doing with the Haitians and Syrians and others, we're going to send people who were here legally back to countries that are plagued with violence, that they are in extreme danger if they go back to these countries. And these folks are working and contributing to the economy. This has nothing really to do with keeping Americans safe or rooting out career criminals. It has to do with meeting some made-up mandates that the president has been put out there. And it all, I think, also relates to trying to distract from what happened in Minneapolis and what happened with those 2 murders. And there's real questions about whether those individuals were here legally or not, and whether they should have even been targeted. And the asylum process is one that has worked well in this country. It is not easy. I work with folks who are trying to get asylum. It is not an easy process. And to circumvent that undercuts kind of what is at the foundation of this country, that you can come here seeking freedom if you're in need of it.
Yeah, I mean, Ellie, the asylum issue has been a target of conservatives for a long time. They think that it's too easy to claim asylum. And maybe they are right to some extent, that the asylum system is so broad and the adjudication is so slow that it does leave this massive backlog. But what they're doing now is basically putting all of those people before these immigration judges who are part of the Justice Department. And I think people might forget that months ago, the Trump administration, they purged a lot of immigration judges who they thought were too willing to grant asylum. So they're going toward a group of folks now who are very much aligned with the Trump administration's vision for cracking down on asylum.
There are many problems with the asylum system. They have existed for many years. However, what the Trump administration is now doing is really treading right on that line of no due process, because what they're doing now with this rule change is essentially saying, of the 1.4 million or so pending asylum claims, we're going to take 440,000 of them who have been here for more than a year, and we're essentially going to take you out of the normal system, put you in front of a judge who can summarily dismiss your asylum case, and then you'll be gone. And the thing I want to point out is the decisions that the administration makes and the Supreme Court makes have immediate and vast consequences. And we're seeing that now in the asylum context. We're seeing that now with the temporary protected status decision as well. And to Christine's point, there is a fundamental, not just tension, but conflict between, on the one hand, we're going to deport the worst of the worst, and on the other hand, and here's a daily quota. You have to deport 2,000 people a day. Those two things do not mesh.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's an important point. I mean, when you have quotas, you're basically saying a dragnet is okay.
Well, look, I think the results speak for themselves. This is one of the areas where President Trump is doing strongest and Republicans are doing strongest is on crime. They have a 14-point advantage over the Democrats when it comes to cracking down on crime.
But we just discussed that we're not talking about criminals here.
Right.
But this is all part of the concerted effort.
Who are
really those Haitians? There's no evidence
actually by any stretch of the imagination.
There's no evidence that there is a significant number, if any, of the Haitians who are here on TPS who are the worst of the worst or criminals. This isn't about crime.
There is plenty of evidence that there is crime related to all of this.
Really?
This is, by the way, this is temporary.
You know what's really interesting about this?
Where's the evidence?
You know what's so fascinating?
This is putting so much stress on our entire system, on
the
healthcare system, on the education. Well,
where's the evidence of the crime?
So you just switched from crime to
healthcare
to education.
He's all over. He's dream shaking.
No, but because it's all tied. You can't say that immigration does not impact all these other sectors.
All I'm saying is, where's the proof?
What I'm saying,
that's all I'm saying.
We just said that we're bringing in people from very violent countries. We have increased crime under the Biden administration during those 4 years, period. I don't think this is really up for debate.
It's very much up for debate.
Here's the reality here, because there's this thing in this world called facts. And the facts is that only 5% of the people that you're deporting are violent convicted criminals. Those people that are the worst of the worst, violent rapists, gang members inside of our country. Everybody agrees that those people need to be deported, but you're only deporting 5% of violent convicted criminals. Let's go compare that to when Barack Obama was in office. 92% of the people that were deported under interior removals were convicted criminals, and of that 92%, 81% were deemed by the federal government as the worst of the worst. So we went from deporting that many of violent people inside of our country to only 5%. You guys are not focused on the real violent threats that are inside of our country, and that's evident.
Yes, we absolutely are.
So,
do you understand 5%?
So as I mentioned, Terry, as I
is 5% allowed? Which number is bigger?
It was
Terry,
not
hang
just
on
about
a second.
crime.
Hang
it
on
was
a
about
second.
education. It was about the healthcare system.
Terry,
it was about
just a
now we're
second.
talking about education.
What we're talking about here, and as I pointed out, the group of immigrants that we're talking about here are highly vetted. Asylum seekers, TPS seekers, and in the case of what they're doing at airports, these are people who have pending immigration cases. According to the New York Times, they're going to these airports, and according to an immigration lawyer, they're casting a net for the people that they want to detain that is far wider. This lawyer has 4 clients who were detained at airports in the last 10 days, including 2 women who recently married Americans and are in the process of obtaining permanent residency through their spouse. One of the husbands was with his wife when he was taken into custody in Burbank, California. These are people who are basically waiting for the federal government to adjudicate their legitimate pathway to a green card and citizenship. And the Trump administration, because it's easy and frictionless, is just picking them up at airports. Again, how is this addressing the issue of crime or the worst of the worst?
Well, I think the issue, Abby, is the scope of the problem with Biden's open border policies. We did allow a lot of people that should not be here in an unprecedented scale to come into this country.
So why
I'm a descendant of immigrants to this country. I believe that we are founded in this country on. I believe that people should be afforded. People are actually that are under TPS or asylum status. They are afforded certain elements of the Constitution and due process. I think that should take place. But what happens is when the pendulum swings in either direction, Abby, too far, the response is often commensurately too far. And I think that's what we're seeing.
So is that what you're,
right now.
Look, I'll
So there were a lot of different topics covered in that discussion, but for me, they all came back to one thing: credibility. Let's start with the Pentagon, because I think that's where the most serious questions are. If American service members lost their lives during the Iran conflict, then that's exactly what happened. I don't think any family wants to hear that the classification of how their loved one died is suddenly changed after the fact. Whether it was an administrative mistake or something else, transparency has to come first. That's something Republicans and Democrats should both be able to agree on. The second thing that really stood out to me was the discussion around America's military stockpiles. Did you notice how nobody seemed able to give a straight answer? One minute we're told the military has everything it needs. The next minute we're hearing warnings that interceptor missiles are running low and that expanding the conflict could create even bigger problems. If that's the case, then just tell the American people the truth. Stop pretending everything is fine if it isn't. Now let's move on to immigration, because this is where I think the administration has created a contradiction for itself. Donald Trump repeatedly told the American people that the focus would be on deporting the worst of the worst, violent criminals, gang members, and dangerous offenders. But during this discussion, we heard statistics suggesting that only a small percentage of those being deported actually fit that category, while many others are asylum seekers or people already going through the legal immigration process. If that's true, then it's understandable why people are beginning to question whether the policy matches the rhetoric. Then we got to Anthony Fauci. Honestly, this debate just feels like America is stuck in 2020. Instead of spending our time figuring out how to better prepare for the next pandemic, we're still having the exact same political arguments we were having years ago. Science should absolutely be questioned, but it should be questioned with evidence, not with talking points designed to score political points. And finally, the discussion around Donald Trump's legal protections and the so-called weaponization fund really sums up why so many Americans have become cynical about politics. Whether it's Democrats or Republicans, people don't like the idea that politicians might be writing rules that primarily protect themselves. That's not what the American people elected anyone to do. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments section below. Which part of this discussion stood out to you the most? As usual, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more news commentaries. I'll see you guys in the next one.